This is the DTV Digest, the podcast that brings you news and reviews of films which didn't make it to the cinema. And now, here's your host, Mike Parkin.
Hello everyone and welcome to the DTV Digest. I'm your host Mike Parkin, and joining me as usual are Richard Hawes.
Hello everyone.
And Stephen Lockridge.
Hello.
This week we've got seven films to be looking at. We're going to kick off with Frank Grillo and Andy Garcia in Long Gone Heroes. Then we have End of the Rope, followed by the Rutger Hauer documentary Like Tears in Rain. Top Floor comes after that, and then Alien Lifeblood, aka Wellwood. Don't Turn Out the Lights and Catalyst are our two that are our tail end Charlie, basically. Our short shot this week is the Thor, and then we have Godzilla vs. Biollante as our DTV throwback. So, without further ado, let's crack on. Our first review then is Long Gone Heroes. A special forces soldier who has given up on country, religion, and even hope must return to the field of battle to track down his niece, a reporter caught in the middle of an illegal private contracting operation that went dead wrong. Okie dokie. See, you know, in the world of DTV, we're very familiar with the work of Mr. Grillo. And I think we can safely say it's a bit hit and miss overall. Yeah. You know, he has been in some questionable projects. You know, he's not quite the star he should be, I think. And I saw the one he did with Isaac Florentine last year, Hounds of War, which was shot in Malta. So, you know, when this came along, I thought, oh, he's getting a bit stuck in a rut here. But this is actually after the film settles down after the first few scenes. This is top tier DTV work. This has got a decent budget. It's got decent action scenes, and for once, it's got actually decent dialogue for these characters. I was mostly impressed with this. The opening scenes are a bit rough, and it does take a while. You know, when two of the guys go to visit David, you know, the young guy at his strip joint, and get him on board. That for me is when the film turned a corner, and everything past that I was totally on board with. I thought it was really absolutely superb. The scenes earlier than that, when he goes to visit what's her name, the senator. Can't remember the name of the actress now. Melissa Leo, that's it. Yeah, yeah. I thought, here we go again. You know, it was a bit of that. But once they went to visit David, and you know the conversations they had there, and the conversations they had afterwards, and things like that, and the actual work they did, I was totally on board. Thoroughly enjoyed this. Steve, what did you make of Long Gone Heroes?
I enjoyed it. I'm not as enthusiastic as you, but. Yeah, like you say, at the beginning I was a bit like, So obviously you've got the media res again.
Oh yeah.
It jumps back to a week later or whatever it was. But I just, I mean, it's a stellar cast when you look at it. You know, you got Grillo, Melissa Leo, Andy Garcia, Mekhi Phifer, Josh Hutcherson. You know, it's a proper stacked cast, and I'm quite surprised that it has gone DTV, to be fair. I know it's like a throwback action film, which doesn't really get released nowadays unless you're Gerard Butler or something like that. But I thought it would have had a pretty decent showing, you know, on the big screen, to be fair.
I reckon a few years ago it probably would have. You're right. Yeah. But, you know, even when, you know, things like Land of Bad ends up on Amazon, you know, I mean, and this isn't, I think this is like a notch below Land of Bad in terms of budget and things,
Yeah.
but it is still very strong for this sort of film. Rich, what do you make of Long Gone Heroes?
I didn't really click with this one, to be honest. I thought it had it. I agree that I think it had a really good cast and very strong production values. Put me in mind of similar scale projects like Land of Bad with was it Liam Hemsworth and Russell Crowe?
Russell Crowe, yeah.
Which I really liked. I did like that film a lot. So this made me think of. I thought it took itself. I mean, it was a very serious action movie. It wasn't really, all guns blazing kind of thing. Although there are some action set pieces, but it was very drawn out. For me, I just wasn't really engaging with the story very much. But I did think the cast and the production values were really good. At time, there was a point where I thought it was going to go Men of War. The Dolph Lundgren film. I thought because there was like
with all the
rescue,
end up with all these people,
but they do away with that basically.
They ditch them pretty quick.
Yeah. It's I think the closest film I can think of recently to relate it to would be Extraction, which was a more hands-on sort of action movie, and the sequel as well. But this is a very sort of serious sort of character sort of version of that one of those stories. It's trying to really involve you and take its themes very, very seriously, and that just didn't work for me, unfortunately. But I did think, great cast. Frank Grillo doesn't actually have a lot to do. This is his fifth film, I think, with the director John. And actually the first film of theirs that I've seen. I mean, they've all been DTV. But Grillo hasn't always been the star. Grillo, he started out as a sort of a guest player, or he's supporting actor in Body Brokers and Ida Red, and then he did. I think his first leading role with Swab was Little Dixie. And then he's also done. I'm not sure of his role in it, but he did One Day as a Lion recently as well. I would presume that each of those has good production values and standards, and I would be interested in checking those out. It's certainly they've certainly got a good. They've clearly got a good working relationship. Melissa Leo was also a co-star in a couple of those earlier projects as well. So again, the director, and I think there's a couple of other people in the film who are sort of regulars. So he's making films of a certain standard, sort of higher end DTV stuff, it would seem. So I am, and I like Frank Grillo, so I do need to go back and check out a couple of these other films. Ida Red in particularly sort of caught my eye. That's got Josh Hartnett in as well. But yeah, this one, unfortunately, I feel bad even rating it, because it's like I didn't feel like I connected with it much at all. But and it was really long as well. It's like an hour and 50 minutes or something. And I say I was a bit wishing that it was about half hour shorter. But yeah, I can't say it just wasn't. Maybe it didn't catch me at the right time. I don't know, but it just wasn't quite working for me.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good indication that the film's not working for you when you start noticing how long it is, I think. No, I must admit, I'm the opposite. I was totally on board with this. As I said, the first couple of scenes, like when he goes to speak to Melissa Leo and that sort of thing, it was like, but it did pick up, and it got the camaraderie between them, and the tactical side of it. It reminded me of what was the British one we saw recently about the?
I thought it was Dead Before They Wake. The
no, not that one. Sunray. There you go.
Yeah. Oh yes,
Sunray,
yes, of course.
Fallen Soldier.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, this reminded me of Sunray in the sort of tactical side. You had these guys. They're not gung ho or anything. They're not throwing their weight around. They're professional soldiers, and it is so rare to see that in some films, even big budget films. Did you guys see The Creator?
Yeah.
Oh God, the Marines in that one just fucking shouting at each other all the time. It's awful. It really threw me out of the film. Anyway, so I enjoyed that side of it. I thought, I really did like the sort of tactical side of it. It's my bag.
I mean, I'll
So
be
yeah.
honest. I've really enjoyed Josh Hutcherson in it. To be fair,
Mhm.
I just thought he was a right snarky little shit, and it's just
Oh,
it,
absolutely.
the banter with the other army lads, I thought was really good with him. And yeah, like I say, I enjoyed it. I just don't think I was
Hmm.
as enthusiastic as you,
Hmm.
and I'll
No, it's
definitely
fine.
more than Rich.
Cool. Well, on that note, how are we going to score it? I'm going to give this, believe it or not, an 8 out of 10.
Yeah, I'll give it a 7.
And Rich?
I'd say I'd almost feel unfair, but I'd say there must be a reason why I wasn't engaging with it. I'm going to give it a 6.
Fair enough. So there we have it, a 6, a 7, and an 8 for Long Gone Heroes. Go check it out. This is coming out from Lionsgate, by the way, as well. So there you go. Our next review is End of the Rope. When a family mysteriously disappears from the town of Schaefer in North Dakota, suspicion lands on a sociopathic farmhand. This is based on the true story of the infamous Charles Bannon case of 1931. Okay, so this is a pretty well detailed sort of dramatization of this particular incident that happened in this small town in North Dakota. You know, phones, hardly anyone's got a phone, no internet, obviously. People spread out, and this particular family lived on this farm and had a farmhand called Charles Bannon. And the people in the town started to notice that this family just weren't around anymore. They weren't picking up the mail from the post office. And then the district attorney, or the town attorney, he tells the sheriff about this guy from Minnesota who owns the farm next door, and he'd gone to visit because he'd been renting out his farm to this family. And when he got there, this guy, Charles Bannon, answers the door and he says, "Oh, the family have left. I'm looking after the place while they've gone." Highly suspicious. And then he sort of goes, "Oh yeah, I got something in the cellar I want to show you. You go down first." you know. Luckily, the guy didn't fall for it and left very quickly. So the sheriff has to investigate. What makes it sort of more murky is the fact that there's this absolute shithead in town who likes to stir up trouble. He likes to just sort of battle against authority and all this sort of stuff. And he starts working up the town into a frenzy about this. So when they do arrest Charles Bannon, this guy's sort of basically trying to get a lynch mob together, so they need to hang him, and that's actually what ends up happening. I did sort of look up on Wiki as well to sort of see how they sort of match up. And yeah, it is a good solid story, good film, well made, well acted and everything. It is a bit slow at times. Sort of due process does take a lot of time, and it is very meticulous in the details. But at the same time, you got this absolute shitbag sort of stirring things up until you get the incident itself towards the end, and then you got the sheriff who's sort of stuck with the idea of like, well, I kind of know who the instigators are, but really, I'd have to sort of throw the whole town to the wolves if I'm going to do anything, So yeah, he's left with a very big dilemma. I did like this. It gets a lot of tension out of the story, especially when bits are being sort of details are being told to the sheriff. It is very, very compelling. Yeah, it's an interesting thing that happened. It was apparently the last time a lynching happened in North Dakota. So it's something they sort of I don't know if they're exactly proud of it, but it's one of those bits of infamy, I suppose, in their history. I don't know who it appealed to, really. It's more of a TV movie, I guess. I mean, 20 years ago, this would be a TV movie through and through. But I did enjoy it. So yeah, and I'm like,
poster, I thought it was a Western.
I know it does. Yeah, that's the way they portrayed it, and I've heard a couple of reviews describe it as a Western, but it is set in 1930 or 1931. So there are autocars and things, but it is still very primitive, and it's a one street town basically. The high street, and that's basically it.
So sort of more close to the period of like Killers of the Flower Moon or something like
that. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So yeah, Between the Wars, all that. But yeah, it's a decent little film. And on that note, I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10. Go check it out. Our next film is Like Tears in Rain. Actor Rutger Hauer was private, letting few people into his inner circle. His goddaughter, director Sanna Fabri de Jong, explores his life and reveals a man more fascinating than his screen roles. I'm not sure that's entirely true, but I did find this a fascinating look at his life. It turns out that Rutger was one of these guys who always had either a camera or a cine camera in his hand, and he liked to film everything. There's some interesting details about his life in here. I didn't know, for example, that he first met Paul Verhoeven working on an old serial back in the Netherlands, something similar to like Ivanhoe or Robin Hood. That was really, really interesting. And seeing him back then was, there's a few sort of behind the scenes clips and things like that of the show. What was it called? Was it like Florins or something?
Yes, something like that. I can't remember the exact title.
Yeah, but it was really, really interesting. The other thing that was really interesting, Rich, was finding out that he and oh God, the actor's name's just slipped my mind. Mickey Rourke, yeah. So that he and Mickey Rourke were good friends. We just
and Mickey Rourke gets really choked up.
Oh
when
God,
he's like talking about it. It's like
I must
really
admit,
sensitive side to Mickey Rourke that you don't really think of.
This film does have a sort of 1-2 gut punch in that towards the end of the film they do use the Roy Batty Like Tears in the Rain clip, and have it overplaying, other clips of Rutger from his life. And then you get the bit with Mickey Rourke when he chokes up talking about him. And I must admit, I was like, oh my God, I've got something in my eye. So yeah, it was interesting. It was interesting to find out, that he was still married to his first wife after 50 years, Inika, they've been together all that time. She was the love of his life. It was just, it was a fascinating side of him just to sort of see him relaxing and sort of driving all these vehicles that he liked. He liked to sail. He liked, he liked his motorbikes and things like that. The other really interesting clip as well was when he was on David Letterman with Whoopi Goldberg. And she asks him about his roles. So, he always plays these scary roles. He goes, "Are you a scary person?" He just looks at her and sort of smiles and goes, "Am I?" And the look is it's really sort of playful and mischievous, and it just brings home how fucking handsome he was. It really, it really did. I was a bit annoyed they didn't show any of the Guinness adverts, but other than that, I thought this was really, really good. Rich, did you enjoy this one?
I did a lot, yeah. So I did. I've always liked Rutger Hauer, but I didn't know anything about him. I'll be honest. So it was really fascinating because you kind of expect oh, he's just like everyone else. But it's like, what you think of actors doing.
Mm.
But he was much more of an artistic soul than I ever sort of considered. So he's, he was kind of like he. They say in the film how he wasn't very warm to most people, and he never got involved in parties or gatherings or stuff on the set. He would always sort of go off and be by himself, or or go off and do a journey, or just be in his trailer by himself. You hear actors sort of just going off and being in their own trailer, but I think that's for different reasons. He seems to have got a bit something else going on, and there was a lot of stuff about how he's always been very restless, and he goes off and explores, and so him and his wife, they would always go off, and she gives a lot of testimony in the film, and about like saying, we never stayed in hotel. I don't know how true that is, but she says we never stayed in hotels. We just they were camping, and they had these vans and whatever, and how they met this other family. They bought the camper van when he was in his early success. They went, but they had no idea that this family didn't know who he was, but they just clicked, and they've become like lifelong. And the director of the film is one of his godchildren. Rutger never had children with his wife. We don't know why that is, but it could be the free spirited thing. There could be some other issues going on, but I think there's a little bit of a sadness there that he didn't have children, but he very much doted on, when he was around with them, he very much doted on these other two, and they clearly felt that, and it was very much an interesting sort of extended family dynamic that they had. It was like he could go off and he could have the life he wanted career wise and with his wife, but then he also could satisfy his sort of any wantings or whatever for family life through this other family, it seems. And so everyone had very positive things to say. They were talked about how he didn't have many close friends and stuff. It seemed he was very sort of, he would say he would go away, or he would go back to see his wife. And Whoopi Goldberg was like unexpectedly one of the people who he became very close with. And as I say, Mickey Rourke says, I never had many meals with, I don't go out on meals with other actors very often, but he says I've spent a lot of time with Rutger, and I had very deep conversations. Rutger's very
sort of imitated his fashion sense as well, which is all this sort of stuff. Crazy.
I think Rutger Hauer was quite a poetic soul. It seems they linger on some of the things where they say he used to write things, or say just come out with stuff, and sort of really surprise people. He really wanted to. He did the series he did with where Paul Verhoeven directed him originally was called Floris. That was
Floris. That was close.
Yeah, and then it was like 5 years, like 4 years later, they did the film Turkish Delight. And it was interesting how Paul Verhoeven's saying how, we didn't like him, we didn't want him.
Yeah.
And it was like, and we were wrong with Floris, and then it was like, and then we were wrong with Turkish Delight. And then how their relationship kind of, it all went wrong when they made a film called, because they did
Flesh and Blood.
Massive success.
Yeah.
I think,
Flesh and Blood was the one that went
Flesh
wrong.
and Blood, it all went wrong. They were saying that they were saying what was going on in the film, and how Rutger didn't want to do it, and things like that. But I never really got to the crux of what went wrong. I mean, okay, Rutger didn't want to do it, but why did it sort of sabotage? Paul Verhoeven felt that the film sabotaged Rutger's Hollywood career in some way, and I'm not sure why, because I've not seen the film, and so I can't call to what was. Can you speak to that, of your experience of seeing the film?
Well, what I remember of it, and by the way, it also stars Jennifer Jason Leigh. I can't remember if it came up before or after The Hitcher, but it doesn't have any heroes. Everyone in it is a bastard, basically. So it becomes difficult to sort of root for anyone. Basically, it's an interesting film, and it was quite a big budget at times. But I can kind of see why he didn't want to do it. But anyway, but it's a curio one.
So because he had some, I mean, he got sort of typecast into action kind of roles, and then he went down into DTV in the 90s. They don't dwell on that at all, really. They don't really mention.
No, they don't mention his career after like 1988 or whatever, you know.
Yeah, no, say they don't, which was a bit disappointing. I would like to talk about, maybe the Hitcher a bit more. I mean, it was
the
quite funny.
Hitcher, Split Second, Wedlock, which we've covered as well.
Yeah. Well, the whole structure of the film.
Yeah.
Because the one thing they do mention is Salute of the Jugger, because they're talking to Vincent D'Onofrio.
Vincent D'Onofrio, and he had a really interesting story to tell as well, which I quite liked. But that was the interesting thing about this, is because I'm, watching it and the various sort of famous people talking, and you're thinking, where did they cross paths? Which film were they on? When they like Miranda Richardson, where did he meet her? That sort of thing.
Well, I was trying to think, because wasn't that the film Past Midnight? Did she do that one?
Not sure.
Or was that her sister? Because that was like a serial, that was Natasha Richardson.
All right.
Yeah.
I'll have to have a look later through her filmography and sort of.
Yeah, he must have worked with both of them at some point. So I'm pretty sure they are sisters. I'm pretty sure. Correct me if I'm wrong. Someone. But yeah, so I was right. The structure of the film is quite interesting because they basically jump over Blade Runner, and you're like, that's weird. And then you realize why at the end, because they bring it back to sort of because it dovetails with sort of the end of his life. So that's the reason and it also makes for, because it's his most famous thing, it makes for an interesting sort of thing to climax on. So it's a Dutch documentary. It's on the Viaplay service, which I did say we talked about Gold Run a few weeks ago, which was a Viaplay film, but we originally come across it on the BBC and whatever. I didn't realize Viaplay was available in the UK. It's available on Amazon channels and probably some other places as well. So that's where the film is available, I think, for the most part. But yeah, really good. So we're getting quite a few of these kind of documentaries, which say sort of peel back and show you what these iconic stars of the 80s and that were like, and how revealing sort of these different sort of sides to them. We had and not just the 80s as well, but there was I remember seeing a Patrick Swayze one, and and there were definitely some similarities between like what Patrick Swayze was like and Rutger Hauer. They both seem to have, you think they were there, but they were both quite, according to their partners, they were quite sensitive, and they could have friendships with other women. They were quite, approachable and not, you never heard negative stories about their behavior or anything. They were perfect gentleman kind of characters, guys and stuff. And then recently we had a Roger Moore documentary, which was also, because he was a guy who also ran around with his own camera, taking a lot of footage and stuff, and they worked that in the film. What I thought was really sad was, they say because mate, he used to film all the time, and they showed this clip of him in his warehouse, and it's like he's got all this footage from when he was making probably all these DTV movies and stuff that we would love to see the behind the scenes on.
But it was lost, wasn't it?
It was all lost in a flood, and I was like, oh god. It's like all this footage would have been amazing to see all that. Imagine all the DVD extras and stuff. But luckily they found some in a room, basically. They managed to find a few bits and pieces, which is interesting. Some of it they linger on a bit more than I'm interested in, because it's just, they're lingering on it because they've got.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. One thing I came across on YouTube recently was these sort of reaction videos, like people watching like Blade Runner for the first time, and it was like a montage, of the Tears in the Rain clip and the bit with Edward James Olmos at the end going, "Too bad she won't live, but then who does?" And it was just great seeing basically all these fucking millennials watching this for the first time. Like, oh, he saved him, and the speech and everything. It's like, oh god. But yeah, no, it's interesting coming across these things and sort of seeing how other people react to it now, and still whether it still has an impact. It's very, very interesting to me.
I should
Anyway,
try watching it because I never liked I never liked Blade Runner.
no,
I never got on
Nice.
with it, so I need to try. But and also I need to watch Nighthawks, which was the film, because
Yes.
again, there's a really touching story about, you know,
Mm.
Rutger wanting to, you know, go off to Hollywood, and something happen. You know, there's this thing that happens, and it really sort of casts a shadow over the whole period.
Mm.
And then he has a sort of run in with Stallone and stuff. It's
Yeah.
interesting. I say I've probably
That
given
was
away
funny.
way too many of the things in the film,
Well,
but it's
no,
really worth seeing. Very,
Yeah.
I do highly recommend it.
I do too. And on that note, I mean, how would you score it?
Oh, yeah, I liked it a lot. I'm going to give it an 8.
Hmm. I'm going to join you on an 8. Yeah, it did get to me at the end. You know, you watch all this footage about his life, you know, hear him talking about his life and his philosophy and everything, and then they do the like tears in the rain bit, and you're like, blub. It's yeah, it works very well. So there you have it. Sorry, what did you score it?
An 8.
8. Yep, 2 8s for Like Tears in Rain. Go check it out. Our next film is Top Floor. Julia, a social media influencer, finds herself trapped in an elevator without knowing how she ended up there. A mysterious operator then warns her that he has set the rules of a game. He will ask her various questions that Julia must answer within a time limit, or else he will throw her into the void. I think IMDb sort of ran away with itself a little bit with the synopsis, but there you go. But you know, the first couple of sentences are correct. We got Julia stuck in an elevator with a disembodied voice, being snarky with her to begin with, and then a bit more sort of insidious later on, and sort of throwing various truths in her face. I think, you know, we've been here too many times, though, haven't we, guys? You know, the sort of single room, you know, single cast member. I think we've done a couple of films which literally have one person on screen. This actually has 3, maybe 4 in total. But anyway, I did not get much out of this at all. We just been here too many times.
Yeah.
How about you, Steve? Sounds like you agree with me.
Yeah, I do. I mean, at the start, it's like, right, okay, fair enough. We kind of know what's going. And then there's one bit where you just think, nah, fuck off. It's just getting too ridiculous now. And the only word I will say is rabbit. Right after that, no. And the ending as well.
Oh God!
Just
Oh my God! That ending.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Like, no, not a fucking chance. Not a cat in hell's chance.
I still I can't get my head around what they were actually trying to do.
Yeah,
with that, it's just so bizarre.
Yeah, it really is. And after, like I say, it gets to that point, you just think, well, it's okay, it's ticking along, you know, he's getting a bit nastier, and then he just goes stupid. And you're just like, no, it wouldn't. That would never happen in a million years. And yeah, that's when it really lost me. I'll be honest. After that, it's like that. But the thing is, it is kind of similar to another film we're watching this week as well.
Yes, it is. Yeah,
You're
right.
Not too similar, but in a way, you know, quite similar films. But yeah, this no, not for me, not for me at all.
Rich, what the fuck did you make out of Top Floor?
I didn't make anything out of it because I didn't see
it. Lucky you.
I'm very sorry.
No, lucky you. You dodged a bullet.
Yeah.
I mean, it's on the positive note. You know, you got the actress. I can't remember the actress's name.
Justine Washburger.
Yeah. She's having to carry the whole film basically.
Mm.
And on that note, I think she does okay. I think she is quite engaging. I don't think they do enough with things like the camera work and the editing to make it, to bring any variety to it. It is a COVID film, is what it basically is. That's what we're looking at. It's another film made during the COVID era, or using that sort of framework to make this. But as you say, it kind of breaks its own rules, doesn't it? You get to a certain point,
Yeah.
and it's like, well, how is this actually happening now? We got these other two. We got two detectives who are trying to track her down as well, trying to find out where she is, that sort of thing. But then you get the ending, and it literally just makes you go, "What?" It's just so.
It's one of the biggest fuck yous I've seen in film for a while.
Yeah. The thing is, you get to a certain point, and it ends almost like a Saw movie.
Yeah.
And that might have worked. It might have, if they left it there, that might have worked. People might accept that. But then they decide to do like an epilogue.
Yeah.
And that's where it goes batshit insane.
Yeah.
And you have to ask, what was the writer on? And did he share it with the director to actually keep it?
Same bloke, so yeah, he must have shared.
There you go. Yeah. Yeah. I think, honestly, I think this film is worth watching to experience that ending. I think it is that bizarre. I would honestly recommend people watch the film. Even if they're staring at their phones for like 40% of the time, whatever. It's on in the background, but tune in for when the rabbit turns up.
Yeah.
Onwards, and just let your jaw fall to the floor because you will not believe your eyes.
I mean, mercifully, it is short. I mean,
it's a short film, yeah.
70, 15, yeah. But it's not.
It is.
You're right. I would recommend people watch it just to see that ending.
Just to experience it.
Yeah.
So this is the sort of thing that people are willing to invest in and think, this is it. This is going to work. But there you go. All right, Rich. Steve, what are you going to score it?
I'll give it a 5.
Yeah, 5's generous. I think it's technically well made. All the stuff going on behind the camera. It's just the damn script. And that ending, I'm not sure if the ending sinks it or saves it. It's definitely a Marmite one. It deserves to be talked about, that's for sure. So there you go. 2 5s for Top Floor. Go check it out. Our next film is Alien Lifeblood, also known as Wellwood. Nick makes an extraterrestrial discovery that he decides will cure his wife of her terminal illness. Okay, so we're in X-Files territory here, basically. We have a couple secluded in the woods, basically because his wife is in remission, dying of cancer, that sort of thing. But there's weird lights in the sky and in the woods. He goes to investigate, finds an injured alien who seems to be able to heal himself really quickly, regenerative powers, and decides maybe he can use that to help his wife. So he starts like trying to get hold of its blood and mix it in with her food and her drink in the hope that it will cure her. Doesn't quite turn out that way. There's some good ideas here, I think. I think the film's too long. There are some weird sort of artistic things which I don't think work. It's sort of, when she's sort of floating with the jellyfish and stuff like that. Weird, but there are some not bad elements to this overall. I did not like the fact that the alien sort of changes halfway through the film. I thought that was it. The thing is, it's an alien, right? It's an extraterrestrial being who has a spaceship. And then for the second half of the film, it's just like this feral creature running around. It didn't really gel with what we'd sort of seen up to that point.
Yeah, but I'll disagree with that, because the fact is, basically, it's been tied up and fucking tortured.
Well, there's that.
So, it's pissed. It's...
Well, look, I can get on board with that, but it physically changes, and suddenly it becomes almost like a predator.
Yeah.
Yeah. Even its movements and everything. It's like, it's doing that thing, opening its arms and all that. It feels like, it feels like a different species all of a sudden.
Yeah, I get where you're coming from with that one. Yeah.
Anyway, that's me. What did you make of it, Steve?
I enjoyed this, actually. Again, I thought the script was actually pretty good. The lines that they were saying actually could be what people would say. I mean, it's not too overbearing, not too over the top. The thing that got me really was the female copper.
Mm-hmm.
I just thought she's putting 2 and 2 together, making 10, and it was only there for the third act, to increase the amount of people that were involved in the third act.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I like the characters, because I know it's a extraterrestrial story, but it was grounded in reality. I thought it was actually quite believable what they went through and what he was trying to do. And if that would happen, you try anything you could. I mean, like as soon as they get to the lodge, he's like, well, we've not tried this. There could be this coming up, even like herbal remedies and stuff like that. But I think it helps with her being a doctor as well.
Yeah.
She's just like, well, I know it's coming. I know what's going to happen. There's no getting around it. And I just think it just gives it that little bit of gravitas, that little bit of edge to it, that makes it that little bit more grounded or believable in what they go through.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I can see that. Rich, what did you make of Wellwood?
I was very pleasantly surprised by this one. It's got its UK title is Alien Lifeblood, and it's got a bit of some really, really generic artwork that I think that doesn't really tell you doesn't really tell you what the quality of the film is behind that. It's a much better film than, say, the new UK artwork would present it. I think the American, if you look on the IMDb, the original posters are much more representative of the quality of the film. Making it, this is a really, really well made. Got strong cinematography, really good score, quite ambient most of the time, but really, really good score. It's low budget, but it's using its budget really well. It's a very finely crafted film, intimate sci-fi drama, I would say, about a couple who are dealing with the prospect of death. And we've seen variations on that before. I mean, on the show a few years ago, we did a film called Rose, which was a kind of a vampire. I think it was vampiric. There was a vampiric element, I think, to it. And that was a couple go and stay in a cabin, and they're trying to deal with the situation. There was another one which was on a different tack, which made a strong impression on me about 20 years ago, which was called Shadows of the Dead, which was about a couple who basically get infected and then they start turning into zombies, essentially. So it's a different kind. It's a completely different kind of thing, but it's the concept is quite similar. Of you put a couple in the woods or whatever, and deal with this sort of horror or sci-fi sort of element. And I thought this one was really a good take on that. Say very, very good production values. Say cast of unknowns generally, but the police officer that we were with, Steve was just mentioning, she is played by Keisha Castle Hughes, who gets whose name is most notably associated to a film called Whale Rider, which she started as a child.
Yeah.
But apart from that, it's pretty much an unknown cast, and I thought they did really well. So I think I was really drawn in. I say we talked about a couple of the films this week where I was saying I just like Long Gone Hero. I just wasn't really connecting with it. This I just thought they handled it really well, and the fact that they use a lot of practical effects I thought was really in its favour. It looks a bit silly at times, but I thought they've made the alien, they're using the alien, and they're doing as much practical as they can, which I think counts for a lot. They could have like we talked about the Killer Kangaroo film a few weeks ago, and that film was just ruined by the fact that the CGI just didn't work. And I'd rather see some practical effects that do they always convince? Not necessarily, but I can tell it's something tangible. And I prefer that. And I thought I did think it was a smart film. I thought that they'd really made a good effort. I thought in a weird way it was kind of a twist on E.T. There was like this really sort of twisted sort of E.T. element to it as well as thinking it could also have been like an episode of The Outer Limits, for example. Which was quite. I mean, they used to do feature-length episodes every now and again, but even if this was like a 45-minute, 50-minute story, I think that could have worked just fine. They don't stretch it out too much. It is stretched out, but it's not too bad. Some of the elements, like would say, cutting back to the police officers, that's stretching it out a bit. Say there's a bit jumping it, but there's a couple of elements in that where, unfortunately, there's not really a very satisfying payoff to all that stuff. So it does feel like ultimately that it was mostly filler, but if they had just concentrated on just the relationship with the couple, I think you would have had a really strong like Outer Limits episode or something like that in there. So yes, this was, I think, of all the films we watched this week, I thought Tears in the like Tears in Rain is probably my favourite, but this would be probably the second favourite.
Okay, and on that note, let's do the scores. Steve?
I'll give it a 7.
And Rich?
Yeah, very strong 7 for me.
Didn't gel with me this one, unfortunately, so I'm giving it a 6 out of 10. So there we have 2 7s and a 6 for Wellwood, aka Alien Lifeblood. Go check it out! Our next film is Don't Turn Out the Lights. A bunch of friends embark on a road trip to a music festival, oblivious to the supernatural horrors that await them along the way. Okay, so there are some films, guys, which hook you in from the very first scene. The very first image that you see in some films is enough to draw you in and go, I'm in this. I'm on board right from the start. This film is the polar opposite of that scenario. Okay, this film assaulted my hearing so badly. Oh God, the music, the noise from the characters, the fucking wheels on the bus go round and round. Oh my God. That was just, it was bad. It was so bad. Excuse me a minute. And it did not improve at all. I will give it one positive, and that was when the girls confronted those two rednecks at the rest stop. That scene was pretty good, especially with Jason, the ex-Marine, stepping in to help him. Enjoyed that. But, you know, the thing is, Jason, he's a capable guy, so obviously he's going to be one of the first to be snuffed out, because we can't have capable people in a film like this. No. Yeah, what was this about, honestly? Steve, what did you make of Turn Out the Lights?
It's about the same stuff they're always about. It's obnoxious teens in a camper van. Anyway,
yeah, but that's literally all they had. You know, I mean, even I'm pretty sure all the deaths were off screen.
Yeah.
Yeah, didn't you know? There's one bit where one of the girls is looking out the window and suddenly screams, and you're like, "What?" Yeah, and it's oh, they killed somebody, right? Okay, it's Steve. You know, what do you tell me? You like this?
Oh fuck no!
I dare you.
No. I mean, it was terrible. I mean, every character is annoying. There's not really one likable. Even the one who's supposed to, like the final girl who's supposed to be all right. Even she's pretty annoying, to be fair. It's one of them, you know, where you get a horror film, right? And it'll set out the rules that the haunting or the killer, you know, goes by or anything like that. There's nothing like that in this. It's just random shit happening to him on this RV or whatever. That none of it makes any sense. You don't even know if it's a ghost, a demon, whatever.
Rednecks, whatever.
Yeah. You don't even know. I mean, the closest thing you see to a slight bit of gore is when one of them opens the door and there's got blood all over him.
That's right. Yeah.
Vanishes after a second, never to be seen again. It's just tooth-pullingly bad. It's just there's nothing there at all. You know, I mean, it's shot quite competently and edited quite well. You know, it looks all right, but the script is non-existent. The characters are annoying as hell, and nothing happens. You know, it's not. Like you say, you don't see any deaths on screen or anything like that. And then, again, another ridiculous ending.
There's a bit in this where I think there's like 3 or 4 of them left at this point.
Yeah.
And they start thinking, oh, maybe it's a prank. Maybe they're pranking us.
God.
And that conversation goes on for like 10 minutes.
Yeah.
You know, while they debate whether or not it could possibly be a prank. They're all just fooling and behind, you know, they're all going to jump out. 10 minutes of screen time with them talking about this. Absolutely ridiculous. Rich, did you enjoy this one at all?
No. You know, it starts off with...
It was a very measured...
Well, yeah, I mean, you know, it starts off with the obnoxious young adults, and then it's like they bring out the camper van. So, you know, it's like standard horror, a very, very standard horror movie setup stuff, you know, Texas Chainsaw, you know, up to Cabin in the Woods and all that sort of stuff. But this doesn't, you know, why after Cabin in the Woods, you've really got to do something with the concept. And this doesn't. Okay, they never actually go to a cabin in the woods, but you know, the point is, you know, they basically stay in the camper. That's it. But you know, we've seen variations, so many I mean, they you know, they get together, they go, we're gonna have a great time. They end up in a place they shouldn't be in. They go in and, you know, see the unwelcoming locals. Some, you know, they get threats, whatever, and then it's like, and then I agree entirely with what Steve was saying. You know, they just throw different stuff. You know, there's a whole bit that feels like The Fog, for example, with, like John Carpenter's The Fog, but nothing's ever really established or whatever, and sometimes you can get away with that. Quite sometimes you can say we're not actually going to explain what's happening. But you need to be able to infer it to some degree.
Mm.
And I think there's just too much that just doesn't kind of fit together. It's an unknown force, okay, that's playing it. There's hallucinations, a little bit of Nightmare on Elm Street kind of stuff, hallucinations and dreams being played with tricks on. A couple of the bits did work for me. I thought there was some nice bits with, playing tricks on them, like one of the characters is, outside and they're banging, they're trying to get in and stuff, but from the perspective of the people inside, they're still like all the way down the road, and they're thinking, oh, they're there, but in the reality is they're actually much closer and they're trying to get their help, and I thought that was not a nice idea, and I thought that worked all right. I'm sure other people have done it, but it was just, it's just, it doesn't bring it. And this is, good, a slasher movie-ish concept like this, hour and a half max. And this is nearly 2 hours. It's like an hour and 50 minutes with, like with, like you guys said, not a lot happening, not a lot to reward what you're watching, and the characters, you just hate hate the characters. And we had this with that Till Death Us Do Part, or whatever it was. If you really hate the characters, you're on a road to nowhere, really. Only you've got to have somebody in there that's likable. I mean, they try and introduce a character, the final girl kind of character who's supposed to be the more like, but then they're not, none of them. You don't really like any of them, and they're just they're so irritating. And I was just like, I knew as soon as it started that this was just what it was going to be. Yeah. And I said, oh god,
as soon as
we've got to put up with these people for this long. And it made me think of like Bodies. I don't know if that's what they were trying to go for. Just have these really obnoxious, unlikable characters. But for me, Bodies didn't work. I mean, for some, I thought, some people thought it was brilliant, the whole thing of it. But that was better than this, at least. But I think it's in a similar ballpark, I would say. I think that's what they were trying. The weird thing is, the director is not like some newcomer, some unknown. Okay, he's come out of comedy and stuff, but he's got had a very well-established Hollywood career from the early 2000s onwards. Did two family-friendly sort of movies for The Rock. Did The Game Plan and Race to Witch Mountain.
Oh yeah.
Did Paul Blart Mall Cop 2, and She's the Man, which was quite a well-known film at the time. You Again, another one, and then sort of went into some TV stuff, including more work with Kevin James. But has done loads of stuff, and I just can't see. This feels like, okay, he's not done horror before, and he was trying to do something, and it just didn't really work out for him. But yeah, this seems like it's someone's first crack at it, and they're just not getting it. And okay, maybe it's his first crack at horror, and he just didn't work out for him. So back to comedy and family friendly stuff for him. Maybe, I don't know. It's just it seems like maybe it was a gamble that just didn't pay off. It's just he certainly didn't seem to have a big Hollywood budget on this, that like he did for his earlier films. So yeah, it just didn't bring anything new to the table, and didn't actually do the things that you want from a film like this, even at its most basic level. Just didn't satisfy.
Do you think even the title works in terms of the movie?
Well, I think to a degree, because it's all about. It's again, it's tying in with these. It's taking all these ideas that other people have done, like A Quiet Place and things like that, and it's trying to throw them together, to mix them with the the slasher movie kind of tropes that we've been familiar with from like the 70s onwards. So I think he's trying to tip his hat to all these films, including the ones of Wes Craven, John Carpenter, and a little bit of some of the contemporary stuff as well. I think he's trying to make his kind of version or homage to all this stuff, but not a good one.
No, really isn't. On that note, how are we going to score it, Steve?
I'll give it a 4.
And Rich?
Oh, it's God. Yeah, I would say sort of a sit on the fence 5, but I'm going to go for a 4 with Steve.
Which is unusual for you. You don't usually go low, as low as that.
But I'd say it's I can't really.
No,
I don't think it's worth watching. I mean, no, I mean it has got good production values to an extent, but
yeah.
I
don't know.
don't waste your time.
I think a lot of people are going to feel cheated. The fact that none of the deaths are on screen, for one thing. I got a nagging doubt somewhere in the back of my head that maybe we've just misread this completely and it's meant to be a comedy. But even so, as soon as that fucking wheels on the bus chant started at the beginning, I was so tempted to turn it off. I was that close to going. Nope.
She might be the killer or something like that. There's some really good.
Well, exactly, yeah.
Or the what was the witch one we saw?
She came from the woods.
She came from the woods. Go and watch that.
I mean, that's an awesome film. Yeah. Anyway, there you go. I'm joining you guys on a 3 4s, should say 3 4s for whatever this was called. Don't turn out the lights. Yeah. Go check it out. See it. Tell us we're wrong or agree with us. Either way, go check it out. Our last main review this week is Catalyst. 7 men are abducted and held by mysterious masked captors. As the mystery behind their captivity unfolds, they must decide their own path. Choose one of them to die or take the leap of faith that there may be another way out to save them all. God. I mean, God. I mean, really. What is this? It's like I'm trying to put it into words. It's like someone took the idea of the traitors and then turned it into some sort of macho men's rights self-help group meeting in a prison or something. No. I mean, 1,000 times no, really. Everything about this just riled me up. It just wound me up so much. Again, we've seen this sort of thing so many times.
We've seen this type of thing this week.
This week, I mean, yeah. So Top Floor is another, a similar example of this. But I can probably, go through my records. I can probably find about 5 films which have this sort of thing. A group of people put together. Oh, why we're here together? I don't know. Let's try and figure out why we're all here.
Go and watch Unknown, everybody.
Which one?
Unknown with Jim Caviezel.
Jim Caviezel, yeah, that's a good one.
Men wake up in a locked warehouse, no memory of who they are. They need to figure out which one's the goodie and which one's the baddie and all that.
I'm pretty sure Roll Wren's done something similar. There's loads. There's Touch of Saw and all the rest of it.
Saw is definitely there.
Yeah, and then there's the editing. This feels like an early 2000s movie in some ways. With all
it feels like a Michael Bay movie.
a non-budget Michael Bay movie.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just too rote. It's just too familiar. 100%.
I think
Steve,
the main. Sorry, I'm just going to interject here.
Yeah.
I think the main problem is that you just don't get involved and care about the stories that the film is trying to get you to care about. It's like the men's stories and stuff. It's just because that's what it is. That's all it is for the most part.
Mm.
And you just don't. If it doesn't, you don't care. It's just annoying. Sorry.
No, you're right. And the thing is, it never gives you enough information in any of those sort of revelation moments. I was struggling to figure out what was actually happening.
Yeah.
I mean, I think overall the idea is that they're all linked, isn't it? You know, their stories sort of interact and cross over and things. But it was just, yeah. I mean, you compare that to something like Abigail, you know, which had a similar idea in that, you know, these people have been brought together for a particular reason. You know, that was but that all made sense. But this just, I just hated it. I hate the look of it. I hate the editing. I hated, you know, 7 guys just yelling at each other. You know,
Well, you say to hate the look of it. I was quite impressed with the visual qualities of the film. It is over edited. It's massively over edited. But I was impressed with the, you know, I thought the credits looked really cool. I thought the cinematography and the grading was really cool, and some visual effects were really striking. It's a low budget, but, you know, we were talking about earlier one of the films, and I was saying it was using its budget really well. There's elements of this where they're using the budget really well. They've managed to get a couple of good actors in there. They've got Patrick Kilpatrick and that. And all the actors, I think, are really giving it their all. I think they're really they're trying their best to make it work. It just doesn't. And I thought there's elements here. I mean, sorry, I'm really cutting into.
No, sorry, carry on.
I didn't care about it, and I think the film is trying all the way through to make you. It's trying its hardest to make you care, feel how important it all is. It's like the music and all the cutting and the flashbacks and the thing. It's like everything has to be like emphasized. It's like this is important, which made me feel that it was quite pretentious, and it was just like,
oh god, yeah,
and you know, it's like a bigger, and it's all leading into the end, and it just keeps going on, and it just sort of leads into the end where they do like big reveals and one thing. It's like, oh, this is really important. It's all a universe is going to be building out. It's just like, and I totally get what Steve was saying about the whole Michael Bay thing, because yeah, it's like you imagine some of these sequences are like something from The Island or something, and you know, it's like, but they'll move on to something else that's a bit more visually dynamic in a kind of different way. But this one only has like that set bag of tricks and just keeps doing the same thing over and over again.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, to me, that was the thing, right? You don't care about the characters because you don't. They just shout at each other. And half the time, you couldn't tell who was speaking. Not the fact that, you know, it was someone off screen. You couldn't tell by looking at them who it was, because the lighting, I thought, was just all over the place on it. You know, the colour shade, the grading, it was just, it's just pretentious bullshit that tries to get you to care about what they've done or what they're going to do or blah, blah, blah. And you're just like, I really couldn't care less. Nothing grabs you with it.
They set it all up with, originally the opening is like, you know, you get like some text on the screen, and it's like, or somebody says something, and it's all kind of this secret society-ish sort of thing. And then they kind of, you know, they don't dwell on that, and it basically turns into Saw, and then they're all together, but without the body count, without the killing stuff.
Yeah.
But they're basically all wake up, and they got to figure out why they're there, you know, unknown and all that sort of thing. And, you know, they start arguing amongst themselves. And yeah, you're right. I mean, there's supposed to be, I think, like 7 of them have been kidnapped. I can only remember like 3. I think 3 of the characters sort of stuck in my head. And it was just, and then I'm watching it, and I'm like, wow, so okay, we're at the half-hour point, and we're still just watching these guys arguing and shouting at each other. And I was just thinking, okay, that's what this is, isn't it? It's just going to
it's in real time, isn't it?
I don't care. Yeah, I was just zoning out, and when it comes, you know, when it does sort of branch, you know, spread its wings a little bit later, for, you know, it wasn't really registered. I completely get what I do like a lot of, you know, what they were trying to do with the visual style and stuff. I think that, you know, it did catch the eye. It does catch the eye. But I can see what, some of it is too dark and some of it is really too confusing with the characters. But the main problem with the film is it's trying so hard to make you care about something that you can't care about.
Yeah.
Indeed. On that note, scores on the doors. Steve.
4.
And Rich.
No, I liked it a bit more. Say that I thought there was a bit more rewarding about it than the Don't Turn Out the Lights. So I'm gonna give it a 6.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm going to split the difference with a 5. I don't know why. I think Rich has sort of helped me sort of bump the score up a bit on the technical side. So there we have a 4, a 5, and a 6 for Catalyst. Go check it out. Our short shot this week is The Thaw. In 19th century Vermont, a young woman's parents drink sleeping tea to survive the harsh winter, but an early thaw leads to horrifying results. Very strikingly shot film, this one, guys. This was shown at the Mayhem Film Festival last year, and they've sort of recently promoted it along with a couple of others that they'd shown. It's available on Alter on YouTube. Yeah, but very strikingly shot in black and white. This works very well indeed. Steve, what did you make of this?
Yeah, it reminded me of The Witch.
Mm-hmm.
The Robert Eggers one.
Yep.
In a way. Quite fascinating thing where they've got this sleeping tea that will put the mum and dad to sleep for like 3 months, so the daughter can survive the winter with the rations that they've got. And then it all goes horribly wrong, basically. I like the black and white aesthetic on it. I thought it was shot really well. It really stands out with the snowy.
Yeah, and set during the the winter and the snow and everything.
Yeah, I thought that was really well. I mean, they're a bit over the top performances, a little bit, especially the dad. He was a bit for me, but apart from that, yeah, it's quite enjoyable actually.
Mm-hmm. There's an interesting bit at the beginning of this when, and it kind of shows you the measures that people have to take and the sort of callous nature of it.
Yeah.
The fact that this girl had basically been kicked out by her new husband.
Yeah.
Because she wasn't worth keeping around because she wasn't pregnant or anything like that. So she was just literally another mouth to feed during a harsh winter.
Yeah.
So you had to send back to her parents. And then the whole thing with the tea and what happens when we have the thaw a bit early. I thought it was great. So, some of the imagery was superb, like when she finds her dad awake and what he's doing, the way he sort of turns around. I thought that was very good. And it sort of really brought home this the sort of more pulpy sort of horror element. I thought was very good indeed. Rich, what do you make of The Thaw?
I'm mainly interested in the look of it, like say the black and white photography or cinematography, I should say, of the film. Say Robert Eggers is sort of the one sort of getting a lot of recognition for that, because he's kind of with recently, say with The Witch and then with Nosferatu and stuff, he's sort of getting very noted for that. But you say it's a look we've seen used in shorts and features a lot, and when there's sort of more associated with the kind of art house horror and stuff than the mainstream. But when it's done by a good set pair of hands, good cinematographer or whatever, it does work. It is really very effective, and I think that is certainly the case here. I was just trying to look up the name of the cinematographer. I think it's Demi Waldron, I believe, did the work on this one for working with directors Sean Temple and Sarah Wisner. This, interestingly, was also one of the selections for Etheria Film Night last year, which I think was on would have been on Shudder.
Yeah.
I didn't actually get to see the full selection of those films last year, so I only just realised that this was included in that. But certainly very fitting that it would have. The story itself, and that I wasn't that bothered about. I'll be honest, it didn't really sort of click with me and that. But I did really, it's 16 minutes long. I did enjoy the aesthetic of it, as Steve was saying. Not so much worried about the story and what happens and stuff. But it was okay, but not something I'd be sort of recommending. Saying you've got to must see this as I do with some films. But I do think and it's got a good poster as well. Really striking looking film, good poster, some interesting ideas and performances in there. But not 100% for me.
Okay. Well, we don't score the shorts, but we do recommend you check them out, and you'll find a link to this in the footnotes below. Go check it out. Our DTV throwback this week is Godzilla vs. Biollante. Desolate by the loss of his daughter, a geneticist creates a monstrous new mutation. I mean, that is the most praise-seed description of any Godzilla film. It doesn't even mention Godzilla, but there you go. So yeah, interesting one. This it's been remastered by Criterion, and that disc is on its way, but you can see this online legitimately through, where is it, Rich? It's some archive or something, isn't it?
On the Internet Archive. I'm not sure how, whether this is like a legit source or because some stuff is, it seems, uploaded by people who are behind some of these films or associated with them in some way. It's been there for, all I know is I found this one there. It's been there for a while. I've never really used the Internet Archive links before, but there's quite a fair amount of stuff on there.
Cool.
Good quality, copy. As I say, I don't know if this one is. Some of these Godzilla films are sort of running around on YouTube and stuff as well.
Yeah.
Again, I'm not sure how legit. The thing about this one is it's never. It's just coming out on Blu-ray, but it's never been released in the UK before, which is just amazing. It's like there's a whole. We're into. I know we've talked about this before. We're at a point where you would think anything and everything would be available by now, with whether it be physically or streaming, whatever, and it just isn't. This Godzilla, one of the biggest franchises, a large number of the films never released in the UK, and still to this day very hard to get hold of.
Indeed.
And this was one of them. So it was I thought it was really good to finally get to see this.
It's a very strange film. So we have this scientist who has some of Godzilla's skin cells that he's experimenting on. There's a terrorist attack in which his daughter dies, so he takes some of her skin cells as well, merges them with Godzilla's skin cells and those of a rose, and creates Biollante. In the meantime, Godzilla himself is ravaging up and down the Japanese coast. From a special effects point of view, this film is pretty amazing. Yeah. Some of the shots they do are Godzilla wading through the sea and stuff like this. It looks amazing. There's this sort of spaceship drone thing that the good guys are using, which it looks like something from Tracy Island. Yeah. It's really, really good. Lots of really, really good work on that side. The actual story, I was like well confused with. There's so many weird shit. There's like industrial espionage going on. There's a psychic girl who's trying to communicate with the daughter part of the plant, and all this sort of stuff going on. And
it's
then
very
of course,
action packed as well. You got guys running around with guns.
Yeah, exactly.
Which you don't normally get in a Godzilla movie.
No,
which I
absolutely.
was really surprised.
Yeah, it was a little bit all over the place, but when it's concentrated on Godzilla itself and the attacks and stuff like that, it looked pretty amazing. I mean, I'm sure when it gets the 4K treatment, it's going to look even better. So Steve, what did you make of this one?
Yeah, I enjoyed it actually. It is a bit weird. I mean, like you say, he's created a big giant mutating plant from the Godzilla cells, plant cells, and his daughter's cells. And the bit that really threw me was the ESP.
Well, that is a sort of key feature in some of the, especially with Mothra. There's always these two sort of tiny girls who like psychic or something. Always, so that is part and parcel of the franchise.
I mean, when I was a kid, I watched loads of the Godzilla films, but it's when I was a kid, so we're talking like 30, 35 years ago. So I can't remember them at all. But so, like I said, the ESP bit that really threw me. I was like, what? Yeah, it just seemed very strange out of nowhere. And this is it Sardinian terrorist who keeps turning up as well? It's just all right. What is he actually trying to do? He just keeps shooting people or try to shoot people.
Yeah. He's very calm, isn't he? When faced with Godzilla, when Godzilla's like literally looking at him, he's very calm and cool and collected. Yeah.
But like I said, I thought the effects were great. I really did think the effects were brilliant in it. Just it's a guy in a suit smashing a model up, but it works. It really does work, and it looks great. And
plus, you got the music. You got the Godzilla theme and everything. Yeah, it's very good.
The sound of the roar or whatever it is, Godzilla and stuff like that. But yeah, I enjoyed it.
Rich, what did you make of Godzilla versus Biollante?
Yeah, it was good. I mean, I didn't realize. I say I've not seen it before, but I didn't know it was a direct sequel to the 1985 Godzilla film, Return of Godzilla, which was re-edited as Godzilla 1985, and they had Raymond Burr into it. And this picks up immediately after, and that's where you get like the US military or something, or spies for the US military or whatever, trying to steal stuff from the site and all this sort of stuff kicking off, and then you get to see big action scenes, which the previous film just didn't have anything of that sort of vigor. It just wasn't. It wasn't great. I mean, I mean, I'm talking about the re-edited version. I probably haven't seen although I'm sure it was released. The Return of Godzilla was released on VHS tape, and I think I did own it. So I probably did have the non-Raymond Burr version as well as the Raymond Burr version. But this had a lot of energy to it. There's a lot going on. Some of it's a bit. The score at times is very John Williams to me. It's very quite upbeat and stuff. Maybe this was before Jurassic Park and stuff like that. But there's that sort of classic sort of John Williams of sound, which I think they've gone for. They've kind of they've tried to add in, say, these big gunfights and chases, as well as all the usual sort of discussions and destruction in the offices. The ship that you mentioned, it's the Super X2. That's the thing from the previous film. They basically salvaged it and improved it, so that brings that follow through is quite nice. We get 2 exploding helicopters about an hour and 27 minutes in. Might be some others, but they were 2 very close together at that point. which was cool. I thought the creature itself, say the plant-based what antagonists, you know, the monster is, you know, they're all kind of sympathetic in their own way. Some of them, in this case, because it's got these links to the past, the daughter and stuff. It actually made me think of Audrey 2 from Little Shop of Horrors.
Yeah,
because I think even in that I haven't watched that film in years, but I'm sure there's a bit where Audrey 2's grown really big, or there was supposed to be a scene where Audrey 2 has grown really big and done a bit of a Godzilla kind of thing.
that was the alternate ending, the original ending.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, so I did have a vague recollection of something I'd come across. But yeah, it's weird because the creature grows up and it literally has like a rose head on it. It all changes. Like the weird thing, I got very confused at certain points because it felt like Biollante had been destroyed, and then it was just like it was back, and I didn't understand how. I didn't really get I thought that it seemed pretty definitively destroyed at one point, and then it was just kind of back in a new place, in a new form. And what was the other thing is, I didn't. Again, I was watching it fairly closely, but I might have missed the point. But it felt like nothing had been resolved by the end. Like they hadn't actually, you know, completed any of the objectives. I don't know. I mean, obviously, Godzilla fights Violet and Godzilla goes off, but it didn't. I'd say I think I'd need to watch it again because it didn't feel like it was compared to some of the other Godzilla films I've seen, including, say, films like Godzilla, Mothra, King Ghidorah, Giant Monsters All Out Attack, which has never been released in the UK, as far as I'm aware, but is one of the best ones. Is, you know, everything was very. I understood all that was going on in that film, and even something like Final Wars, which is all over the place. Understood that, really. I mean, it's crazy, but kind of understood it. Whereas this one, it felt like I should know. But you know, it's like it's a very well made. Seems like it's trying to make some clear point. I mean, if anything, I was surprised. It's actually closer to something like Shin Godzilla than I would have expected. It's got some scenes that are really trying to take the subject quite seriously and sort of delve into some stuff, and also harken back to, say, some of the, you know, tragic themes, or, you know, which have run through the whole Godzilla series. It's not a big silly movie like we would get after this films like the Godzilla versus King Ghidorah, where it was all time travel and stuff. It was all crazy all over the place. This one is it's got a kind of a ground. It's kind of big, sort of Steven Spielberg, John Williams, fantasy action, mainstream, but with, you know, a lot of heart and, you know, with some sort of clever stuff in it. But unfortunately for me, I just got very confused at certain points. But I really liked it. I did. I thought it was really good.
Yeah, I really did as well. Especially, yeah, anytime Godzilla was on screen, anytime they had that spaceship thing going on. But, you know, it's just they did a lot with it. You know, I thought it was very, very good. Yeah. Okay.
Have
so
you
we
seen
don't.
any of the other films in this period?
No,
Have you seen any of the other films? Because they say they released only two of them released in the UK on Manga Video. Say the King Ghidorah one that I just mentioned, and Godzilla versus Mothra as well. But then there was the other ones where I think the one that comes to mind is Godzilla versus Destroyer, which is where Godzilla died. You know, they did like a James Bond thing with him basically, and ended the franchise for a while. That was quite interesting, but I think I completely can get why they've picked this one to sort of give, you know, such a treatment. But why the hell is this the first time it's ever coming out? 1989. It's, you know what? I mean, that's crazy that they're just taking these films so long. And hopefully if this one gets a lot of interest, hopefully they'll start, you know, bringing all the others through.
Indeed. There is one I am interested in. Just bear me 2 secs. I'm just trying to look it up.
Another couple from the same period, I think. There's a Mechagodzilla. There were one or two.
I definitely want to see
films.
that. Yeah, I definitely want to see that.
One of which I have found. Yeah, I would like to watch those.
But I'm pretty sure the guy who did Versus did one. Yeah,
that
Godzilla
was
Final
Godzilla
Wars.
Final Wars.
Yeah, 2004.
That's
Yeah,
mad, that film.
yeah, that's what I
It's
want
all
to
over the
see.
place.
I'm sure it is. Is it
You
from
get
that
a lot of
director?
monster action in that one. It's crazy. It's all over the place, but it's pulling in a bit like I was saying with this. Don't turn out the lights. Andy Finkman. What he was trying to do. Final Wars is like pulling in loads of stuff from the whole Godzilla series, and it's just seeing what sticks, and it's just all over the place. I mean, even references to the Hollywood Godzilla.
That's right, yeah, because it came out. Yeah,
stuff like that. But it is, and the Matrix and all weird stuff.
Oh,
I say I don't think it's. Yeah, it's got this guy called I can't remember his name, but is basically an American. Some of the Godzilla movies in the past used to have Americans as lead actors in them. And so this one's got Don Fry speaking English, leading this Japanese group or whatever, and he's a wrestler. But that's
I'm looking at this picture now. Yeah, but I don't want to say it because it is. Yeah, because it's directed by Rihei Kitamura, who did films like The Doorman and Versus back in the day, and a few others that we've covered.
Hopefully we'll be able to do Final Wars one day. I'd love to delve into.
Yeah, absolutely. Right, that is the end of the show. Anyway, so thanks, guys. That was a big slog this week. This is going to be our last episode for a few weeks because I'm off on holiday, but we'll be expecting an episode out sort of mid-April. It'll be the next one. Don't forget to check us out on Facebook and X. We're still there, and Blue Sky at the DTV Digest. Also, check us out on the Short Shots. We are putting together a new episode soon. I keep saying that, but it's true. We are gearing up for a new episode. But other than that, thank you for listening. Tune in next time.
Thank you for listening to the DTV Digest. Let us know your thoughts in the comments and tune in again next time.